Hi, welcome to my channel, and thank you for taking the time. We're currently in a series called What is Awakening, where we're taking a look at this process, which I've called awakening, what it is, how you might go about accomplishing it, and what it means for your life and for your mental health. And so today I wanted to talk about something that can be difficult, especially because of the way that we've kind of been conditioned and raised, but when realized fully, can be extremely powerful. And so today's topic is called Awakening is Feeling an Emotion Fully. And so, obviously, from the title, we're going to be talking mostly about emotions today and why emotion work is so important for this awakening process and for kind of calming the thoughts that lead to suffering. So, as we get into this, I think it's important to recognize that we have been conditioned from very young to suppress certain emotions, to push away certain emotions, to feel guilty about certain emotions, to hide them because they're wrong, they're bad, they're disruptive. And this is, perfectly natural, right? To some degree, we have to regulate our emotions when we're younger so that we don't hurt ourselves or hurt others, so that we can function, so that we don't drive our parents crazy. um, but that kind of conditioning, as you get older, becomes very maladaptive, uh, and leads to a lot of the extra thought in our minds that leads to suffering. And so, what we need to do is kind of unlearn that conditioning and really start to experience the fullness of an emotion. And the best way to describe how this is done is to kind of take an emotion and think about what arises as that emotion is coming up, right? And so, let's take an emotion like fear, because I think this is one that people deal with a lot. Um, and so, something happens in your life, or an event or a thought pops into your head, and it causes the sensation of fear. And, I think it's important to first recognize that the sensation itself is just the sensation. We are the ones that put the thought on it that this is fear, right? And so, what are the thoughts that typically come around this feeling of fear? Um, Often it's, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I wish it was different. I don't want to be afraid. I can't control anything. What do I do? There's a lot of uncertainty here, right? And so these thoughts all kind of swirl around this emotion of fear. And, as I said, that kind of swirling of thoughts is a resistance to the feeling itself. And so the approach that we want to take here is when an emotion arises, right? So the emotion that we would typically attribute to fear. When we feel that arise, instead of trying to push it away or to forget about it, ignore it, distract ourselves, we want to actually dive deeper into it and feel where that fear is happening in the body. And this will take some time. This is not intuitive based on our conditioning, right? Um, it may have been intuitive when we were young, but it's not now. But as you kind of practice this, you'll get better at it. And what I like to do often is to kind of almost force an emotion to arise just by putting my attention on a thought that would normally cause me fear, right? So for me, it's typically around my family and what might happen to them. Um, and so I could purposefully look at the thought, well, what if my family is in a car accident and they all die? Immediately, fear jumps up, right? The sensation of fear. And it would be typical to then try to not embrace that sensation, right? It's uncomfortable. I don't like it. And that is when that resistance leads to a cascade of thoughts that lead to suffering. So what I would like to do instead is to see that that emotion is arising and immediately say, with curiosity, right? Wow, I'm feeling this emotion. Where am I feeling it in my body, right? So it's really a curious investigation. And that kind of curiosity distracts the brain and gets it to start to look and search for that emotion rather than getting this bouncing of thoughts back and forth. And so as the emotion arises, you say, "Oh, that's really interesting that I'm feeling that. Where am I feeling this in the body? Can I find where it is?" And often you can, right? So often you'll search and you'll say, "Oh, I think that maybe I'm feeling that in the chest." Fear oftentimes will localize somewhere in the chest, almost like you can't get the breath that you need. Your heart is racing. There might be a tightness there. And you just feel that tightness, that increase in heart rate, whatever it is, just put your focus and attention on that feeling and continue to stay there. If your mind starts to say, "Oh, I shouldn't be feeling that," that's okay. Just say, "Oh, well, why not? That's what I'm feeling right now," right? And redirect your attention to the sensation that's in the body. And eventually what you'll find is that if you stick with this and you fully dive into that emotion will come to some kind of conclusion and it will kind of leave the body. You'll feel it leave the body. And that lessens the resistance and lessens the thoughts associated with it. And so that's the practice. Um, Again, I would recommend practicing on emotions that you know that you can handle, ones that are maybe not too difficult, maybe something like irritation or anger or a little bit of sadness or disappointment, and really dive into that emotion. Purposefully try to bring that emotion forward and then dive into it and search for it in the body. That kind of practice will prepare you for when emotions arise from circumstances or intrusive thoughts. And so I hope that this practice will be helpful for you. And it has been incredibly helpful for me. I hope it will be the same for you. That's all that I have for today. And I look forward to the next time that we meet.